Namaskar. This is Deepak from Uday India Digital Network. Today we have a discussion on a judicial matter. As yesterday, a new Chief Justice of India took oath, Mr. Uday Umesh Lalit ji, and Justice Ramana get retired yesterday. On that issue, we have with us prominent guests. We have Mr. Bikramjit Banerjee. He is Additional Solicitor General, Supreme Court of India. Bikramjit ji, welcome to India. We have with us Mr. Amitav Sinha. He is a senior lawyer of Supreme Court of India. Amitav ji, welcome to Digital Media of Uday India. We have with us Mr. Prasanna Kumar Nanda. He is a senior lawyer of Odisha High Court. Mr. Prasanna is also legal editor of Uday India since last 12 years. Prasanna, welcome to the digital media of Uday India.
Thank you.
So let us start with a keynote that in his farewell meeting, Justice Ramana has given a brief work, his major decisions, and what he has done during a short tenure, and he has expressed his opinion. There are some sorrow in his feelings. He is quite satisfied that he has done his job perfectly. And Mr. Uday Umesh Lalit, who has taken over yesterday, he was a lawyer in Mumbai High Court. His father was also a judge, and having a long legal profession, Justice Lalit was directly elevated to the Supreme Court of India, and he has a long career as a lawyer also, and as a judge also. He has given many good judgment. And after taking the oath, Justice Lalit briefly has given few priorities. I must read that. Justice Lalit yesterday laid out his priorities by saying he will strive hard to make the process of listing cases as simple as transparent as possible. Make mentioning where lawyers bring urgent matters to the notice of the court easier, and strive to ensure that there is at least one constitution bench functioning throughout the year. So let's first come to Mr. Amitav Sinha. Is there in the frame? No. Okay. So let us start with Additional Solicitor General, Supreme Court of India, Mr. Vikramjit Banerjee. Mr. Banerjee, can you, in brief, tell what was your experience with Justice Ramana, and how you experienced, and he gave many judgments, and what was the uh, system was working, and do you think that
I
new
just
CGI will carry forward with the same way, or he will work in a different style? How do you feel like?
uh, Justice Ramana was a very sharp judge. He was very astute. He understood issues very fast. He understood the undercurrents of issues very fast, and he came clearly straight to the point.
Correct.
In some ways, good or whatever. That was the nature of his decision. Whether it is good, bad, indifferent, that only history will judge as to
Okay.
what was the correctness of his judgments.
Okay.
Um, but there was an issue. The biggest issue was the question of registry, question of listing, which became completely apparent towards the end of his tenure. And
Okay.
when Justice Lalit mentioned those two issues, I think it was very well thought out that he mentioned those two issues.
Yeah.
And so I think that it would be a departure. And of course, there is a need to streamline the registry so that it works in an efficient manner, so that it works in a transparent manner. Because as you all know, in Supreme Court, the biggest sort of grouts is against the registry because listing is not proper. So I think
Yeah,
when Justice Lalit says that uh, matters will be listed not only promptly but fairly and in a
yeah,
transparent manner, a lot of
correct.
what he wants to,
Very
what's
important, of
his
course, very
agenda
important
is,
issue.
he's indicated.
Yeah. And what is the difference you feel the Justice Ramana and Justice Lalit, and of course he make
You'll
two
get
three
me
very
killed. But I'll try to answer that. But I'll have to be very careful of how I answer it. My
okay,
my understanding of both of them is Justice Ramana was a very practical man,
okay,
not necessarily a man with deep knowledge of the law, and I say it with respect, but not a person of, not a theoretical person. But Justice Lalit is uh, has a deep understanding of the law, and he's been one of the most successful lawyers of his generation of the Supreme Court. So there is, and not only of the Mumbai High Court, of the Bombay High Court, as you mentioned, but also of the Supreme Court. So he's been a very, very successful lawyer, and he's a very meticulous person. Justice Ramana would make a sense of the matter as to what are the undercurrents of the matter. Very perceptive man, but he would
yeah,
make sense of the matter. What are the undercurrents of the matter? But Justice Lalit is is by my experience a very correct person. He wants everything to be exactly done as it how it should be,
okay,
and very proper, very correct, and a very meticulous man.
okay,
So justice for him would not only be, he does fair justice, as in he has a heart beating for the poor. I've seen that enough. But it's also, justice not only has to be done, but it has to be done formally,
yeah.
and that's extremely important to justice.
Mr. Banerjee, you have seen that Mr. Ramana has told yesterday that he has taken very good decisions regarding appointment of judges. He has increased 20% of High Court judges, and also he has taken good decisions for appointment of judges in Supreme Court also. And also he has mentioned that equally women are also given priority while this thing. And here, Justice Lalit has got a very short tenure and just 2.5 months, I think, 74 days. So, what would be the challenges and priorities before Justice Lalit? What, according to you, how
No,
do you
I think
feel like
Justice
that?
Lalit has set out his priorities very clearly.
Okay.
He set out his priorities. You've seen that. You mentioned that right in the beginning. He set out his priorities, transparency of the
Yeah.
registry listing process. I think that's an very, very, if anyone manages to sort that out, that would, half the problems of the Supreme Court would be on their way to solution. As for the other things, of course, there's been appointment in the collegium through
Okay.
appointment during the tenure of Justice Ramana. There is no doubt about that. Large number of judges have been appointed, but I don't think it is because of one person.
Mhm.
You also, it's a process. The collegium, as we all know, is a process. So it
Yeah.
requires the government, it requires his other judges to have cooperated and ensured that these things get done in the process.
Yeah.
So I think that the collegium has done a good job, the Supreme Court has done a good job, and the government
Mm.
has gone out of its way to, and government's approach has always been, as to whatever I sort of understand, has been to largely cooperate and to ensure that the most amount of judges are appointed. It's in the interest of the government to do that, because then that is the best way to dispense justice and in this country and to solve problems. But the government has
Mr.
been very clear, and I think in its priority has been very clear, that there are certain issues, certain people whose names are going to be flagged. And
Mhm.
so, therefore, it has been flagged by the government.
Mr. Banerjee, again, I must ask you because of the short tenure, what would be his most priorities, and do you feel there would be any bottlenecks before Justice Lalit?
No,
Is there any
I
chance of will he face any
see,
bottlenecks?
he does have a short tenure. There is no question of that. He knows he has a short tenure. But I think the
Yeah.
two major issues which he did flag, as I said, One was the registry, which anyone who's practicing in the Supreme Court knows what sort of a priority that is. The second is to set up constitutional benches. Constitutional benches, of course, which means the large constitutional issues which have been referred, which for a long period of time have been pending file. So as you all know, that the court has already come out with a list on which pleadings have to be completed, which means the first sort of constitutional benches, I expect, which hasn't been constituted for a very long period of time during the tenure of Justice Ramana, will be constituted now. So I can see, Justice Lalit sort of constituting the larger benches, which has been pending file. So I think he's indicated these two as his major issues. With constitutional benches decisions would mean that areas of law in which had been unsettled would be settled.
Okay. Okay, let us come to Mr. Prasanna Nanda. He is also practicing in Odisha High Court, and he has been fighting against the establishment, and he has taken up many important cases in Odisha High Court. Also, he has done good cases in Supreme Court. Also, Mr. Nanda, how do you react to the elevation of the Justice Lalit, and how the professor, your advocates are reacting on it, and Justice Ramana has gone giving many important decisions like Article 370 and many more decisions.
First of all, the Chief Justice will come and Chief Justice will go.
Okay.
But it's a process by the constitutional mandate, and we follow a procedure that is for that in the entire world. They are concerned. They are astonished sometimes that how such a judiciary, how a judiciary is able to control such a billion plus population and addressing the, and people have the confidence with the people. Now come to the priorities, as you said, that both the chief justices has put their before all that there are priorities by the incoming chief justice, and the last chief justice has also the what has been done during his tenure.
Yeah.
As far as as far as the appointment of 224 judges,
Yeah.
and in the different high courts, and prior to that, 255 cases has been recommended. It's not a
Yeah.
small chunk. But as I am
Okay.
quite agree with Mr. Banerjee, that it's not a one man show. It cannot be.
Yeah.
It's a because there are three components of an appointment. One is the judiciary itself, but the lower the high court. Then it's the Supreme Court collegium and with the consultative judges, and then it goes to the government. Now there was a question sometimes that appointments are not being made in time. You give good names, the government will have the last say, and accordingly appointment. I think in that way, Justice Ramana is succeeded because he sent good names or proper names or those are acceptable to all, to the judiciary as well as the government. Second process, that most important factor, the entire country always watching the Supreme Court. Now the Supreme Court, whenever some issues comes for any High Court order, anything, we challenge in 136 and different special petitions, appeals, PILs. Now the admission of it or listing of it is also a challenge to the judiciary because the entire country is watching this entire system. I filed an application, a litigant filed an application. He must know that when it is done, what will be done. Earlier it was there. But for past some years, I find with my experience that earlier it was very clear. But in past some years, I find that this system has become smoky. Means nobody can answer that why it is happening, what is this happening. Now I am very much thankful that the incoming Chief Justice, Justice Lalit, has given the priority one to that particular issue, which is not concerned for the advocates. Let us not understand that it's an issue of the advocates. It's the issue of the entire litigant public. Litigant publics are coming to the court. It's not the advocates are coming to the advocates are espousing their cause before the Supreme Court. So that is one of the issue. Transparency in the registry, what matter, where you go, that what happened in the past some years when three judges has to come to the press conference. So with all this background, now master of roaster, all these things, I think because Justice Lalit, in an advantage that he was a practitioner in Supreme Court, having a long time, as it said by Mr. Banerjee, that is a deep understanding of law. You can understand that if you put a particular question, you understand he knows that and he is confirmed of it. So I think those are the two issues.
Mr.
But
Nanda, we have seen that all the way you come to Supreme Court also to take up the cases, fight the cases. So, what you people, you advocates expect from the judges bench or Chief Justice of India, and what are the problems you really face, and what the advocate, as an advocate, one expects from the judges bench?
you see, one line only law prevails. So the advocate who is there in the court, he knows when he files the case, he know what is the fate of that case. But
Yeah,
that fate must go with the law, because
yeah.
that is what I expect. Nothing more, nothing less than advocates or any litigant public. Litigant public who has filed a case may be interested that I must win, I must lose, but the advocate is who is espousing the cause. He is interested that law must prevail, not anything. Number two, that you have asked that what is the expectations are. You see, Supreme Court is the highest court of justice, and he is the superintendent of the all the high courts throughout the territory of India. Now, the judgments delivered by the Supreme Court are the binding law precedent to the whole of the country. Now, one of the major decisions that Justice U. Lalit has promised to, that is functioning of a regular constitutional court. I think hearing of Delhi matters is not the priority when the constitution framers they instituted Supreme Court. They didn't think it will take out the day-to-day affairs in application. It was expected to be a court that it will settle the law, and once the law is settled, it will govern the whole country. All the 25 high courts will be ruling with that. That is more needed. And in past some years we signed, it is not given that importance. So a regular functioning of a five-judge bench is a fair recruitment, and I feel because he's a Supreme Court practitioner, he could understand this thing and he has priorities.
Mr. Banerjee, how do you react to Mr. Nanda's view?
No, I agree with him. I agree with him completely. And I think Mr. Nanda has confirmed what a lot of what I was saying.
Yeah.
So I agree on both kinds. There is no disagreements at all. I think anyone who is a lawyer and who's been part of the system realizes that Justice Lalit is also a stickler for rules. If anyone who's appeared in Justice Lalit's court would appreciate that. And to that extent, I think in this short tenure, if he can get at least 60 to 70% of what he set out to be done, it would be a great achievement. I think transparency of listing in Supreme Court, if anyone manages to get that sorted out, I think that would be.
Mr. Banerjee, do you feel that this listing of cases was really a great problem since years, and it started out just now? And why it was not done? Why it took so much of years to sort out such a burning issue? What can be the...
No, I as Mr. Prasanna Kumar said,
Yeah.
that it wasn't so much of an issue. For reasons, again, which I would rather not go into, it has become an issue recently. And, no one says that my matter, let me put it this way, no one says that the moment I file, my matter should be immediately listed. That's all what people are saying. We know that there are delays, we know there are genuine delays. As a lawyer who works within the system, I cannot say that. No one sort of, also we appreciate, or whether we like it or not, some matters are given more precedence over others. We may not, a lot of us may not appreciate that, saying that some matters get more precedence, maybe some matters which are higher profile, or maybe which concern high profile litigants get a precedence over hearing. That happens. but that's okay. But I think the crux of it has been, but there was otherwise transparency within the system.
Mr.
In the
Banaji,
last 2 years, that has not happened.
okay. Mr. Manaji, our viewers should be certainly like to know because you are representing the government cases and you- how really can you tell us your experience on handling with the government and handling with the judges, and there is many times a dispute, and you can say so. Can you brief us any ideas or experiences? How do you handle that situations as an
No,
advocate and
see,
representative
yeah.
the government, and please.
No, as everyone who knows me in the court will know me, I don't take any issues with anyone, and I always believe that you can get a lot of things done if you and you don't lose anything by smiling.
Okay.
And I think there are disputes, of course, and there will be legitimate disputes. Let me put it this way: the whole system of checks and balances, which is at the basis of our constitution, as it is for any liberal democratic constitution, is that there should be some friction between legislature, judiciary, and executive. If there is no friction, you know, then you're on the wrong road to something. The fact that there is friction is good. That's how it should be. Uh, but so there will be disputes, but how it is solved? Is it solved in a constructive way? Or is it solved in a system, in a way where name calling and blaming each other is the key? That is the situation which sort of needs to be looked at. And I think the solution is uh, to look at it constructively. And a lot of times, as lawyers, also, I don't want to take examples of cases because that is not fair, and that, of course, that is, I can't disclose that. But the fact of the
Okay.
matter is, a lot of times we come under pressure, and sometimes we think that the executive doesn't agree to what the bench wants us to sort of get done, and vice versa. Uh, the best way is to speak to both of them and sort things out. And I think my experience as a law officer is that you can get it sorted out. And I don't think it's impossible. I think, you can be the sponge which takes the bashing from both sides so that you can find a midway.
Mr.
Uh,
Banerjee, sometimes it feels, or in fact, you can say people discuss or rumors are there. Sometimes it seems like that the Supreme Court has given a decision that has obliged the current establishment. It feels like people discuss like so, and some.
I don't want to go too much into it, but let me just flag an issue. I think the perception which has percolated
Yeah.
is because the filter of Supreme Court has been news outlets, legal news outlets, which clearly and apparently have political biases. The problem, which is increasingly which we are facing, and I think that is something which the court eventually at some point of time will have to grapple with, is that the filter of news coming out from the court has become uh, certain news channels, legal news channels. There are a number of them, which have clear political biases. And they are very clear about it. They are under no illusion. If you ask them, they say that we have these political biases.
Okay.
So if all the news that you're consuming, which comes out of the court, which is filtered through these news channels, I don't want to take names, obviously, it's pretty apparent that you will get news which they think would serve their purpose are highlighted and twisted. And a normal news, a normal comment will be twisted either way. So we have to be very skeptical of the perception which is attempted to be created.
Mr. Banerjee, you want to say something about the media ethics regarding reporting of the judiciary?
I am not into media ethics because I'm not even discussing media ethics. I'm just saying that news legal news of the courts is filtered, or is put into public
Yeah, certainly. That is,
by
yeah.
legal news channels. These news channels may objectively sort of report the news, but they also, as we all know, interpret the news. In some ways they downplay something, somewhere they overplay something.
Okay.
But these news channels at the present moment, right at the present moment, are dominantly political. I'm not talking about general news channels. I
Okay.
think Prasanna Kumar ji will know whom I'm indicating, but I don't want to take any names obviously on that. But
Yeah.
these channels are openly political. Like, they
Okay.
don't have any illusion of their
Okay.
politics.
Okay. So, Mr. Nanda, how do you react to Mr. Bana's opinion regarding media's sensation regarding certain issues and perception and objective activity in reporting? So, how do you say react to this?
The basic concept is that India has an independent judiciary. The matter will come to the court and the court will decide the matter on its own merit. That's the basic principle. And matter goes to the public. Ultimately, the
Okay.
result of the court goes to the public. I think
Okay.
the last Chief Justice has implemented one day that making the whole process live to the entire country, will be an answer to it. So you see, what does it, the court is open court. Now that person who is there inside the courtroom, if he says that something is happening and he's reporting, it may not be correct to say that no, you cannot report like this. Now he is reporting, but taking advantage of his position as a journalist, because he is not communicating the entire thing. He's communicating the way he wants
Exactly.
and
Okay.
giving a different impression of the whole thing happening inside the courtroom. The judge is asking a particular question for a particular to get himself educated, but the matter is such as if he has formed an opinion for it. Now it creates, because the way it is presented to the people, then it creates the confusion. Now the result is that we have come to a digitization. Corona has given us that opportunity. Whole countries in Orissa High Court has gone live, the Chief Justice Court. That was the first of perhaps in the Orissa. Justice Dr. Muralidhar has implemented it. Now the Supreme Court has started. So once the entire process is open to the people like Parliament, so nobody can suppress that this person and that person. Whole thing
Okay.
will go to the public. And in our democracy, we have proved our people are too much matured to understand what is happening. In a cross examination, if you ask a particular question in a particular way, the answer came, then we show to the answer. If the question and answer both are there, then you can understand what was the question and what was the answer given. So I think we are leading to a transparency, and if you very categorically go to the priorities given, one of them is priorities, transparency, and transparency means this, to my understanding, that we must
Okay.
give the whole country that Supreme Court is not of XYZ. Supreme Court is of people. Supreme Court works independently, and entire thing will go to the public. I think Mr. Banerjee is correct in his approach that we are giving, by giving a dictum of different frame. That suppose something was said in a different context, then you put it to the people in a different context. The whole thing gets missed. The institution is disreputed sometimes, questioned.
Correct, correct. So, both, as for your opinion, both of you has really uh, very firmly opined that Justice Lalit has done the same thing for transparency and making the judicial system a little better for the society and better for a healthy democracy. I think time has come, and let us conclude today. And in our next discussion, we will again meet and we will again discussion about the decisions of Justice Lalit. Good evening, Vande Mataram.